Everyone, I am very pleased to introduce to you Mr. Jay Kellett. Jay is the founder and developer of MultiBridges. Jay builds simple corporate training and tools that solve complex problems. He holds an MS in instructional technology from Bloomsburg University, where he's taught LMS administration, and he speaks regularly at the Corporate Advisory Council. He's designed courses for a variety of professional industries, from medical to federal. He's developed a corporate learning management system, ttlms.com, and is a full stack web application developer and has co-authored several books on web technologies. I present to you, Jay Kellett.
All right, great. Thank you very much, BJ.
You're very welcome.
I'm going to start my video, and oh, yep, here we go. Just for people who like it, appreciate the introduction. Sort of makes this slide redundant. We'll go from there. I think you pretty much covered it all. So let's go on to the next slide. Welcome, and thanks for having me, by the way. What I'm here to talk to you about is crossing into microlearning with MultiBridges. MultiBridges is a slightly experimental new platform for doing microlearning and for incorporating it into a bunch of other things. You may have heard the term microlearning. I just want to touch real briefly on what it is and why it is, what the advantages are. Microlearning is basically about building smaller courses that should be quicker, simpler, less expensive to develop. Ideally, they can be more strategic, so not just onboarding and compliance, which is what a lot of training unfortunately ends up focused on. It enables you to fix performance problems now so that you don't have to wait a year for performance reviews, or so that things don't get behind schedule or off track. Couple examples, two examples that I want to talk about just as a point of reference. The first one is a Peter Drucker case study. And you might be familiar with Peter Drucker. He's an efficiency expert. He's been around for a long, long time. He's unfortunately no longer with us. But one of the things he did was he documented a case study with a client, and this client was spending too much time correcting timesheets. And this goes back a couple of years back when people actually did paper timesheets. And they brought Peter Drucker in to help fix the problem. And what he did were really two things. One was he worked with the company to reformat the timesheet so that some of the common errors that people made could be easily fixed or wouldn't be made in the first place. And the second thing he did was he provided short training. And really that's microlearning, right? So he provided short training to the people who needed it in a timely fashion. And they had an 80% reduction in errors, which is great for everybody. I mean, it meets the needs of it certainly is a tangible benefit of the training. It's appreciated by the company, and it makes everybody's life a bit easier. Second example I want to talk about is a conversation I had with a director at a hospital network last year when I was sort of discussing and diving in and sort of exploring what microlearning could be, as opposed to the old way of doing training, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So this hospital network, it needed to train a small group of people, just around 50 people, on a replacement for a specialty software system dealing in radiology. It didn't need to teach everything because these people were already doing the job. They were replacing the system with a new system, and they just needed to focus on the differences between the old and the new, not everything. So getting into it is a little bit different. Setting up a tracking session is a little bit different. Doing reporting is a little bit different, but the rest of their job was the same. So it didn't need to be a huge amount of training. It just needed to focus on the gap in between the old system and the new system. They went to their training vendor, who was also their LMS vendor, which was not me, and they came back with an estimate that was too much money. It was really out of budget, and it was too long of a timeline. It was a 3-month delivery. It was what a normal training course, if you were going to do a large large training course related to compliance or onboarding, something along those lines, would actually be. So that didn't work for their needs. They ended up emailing job links or links to job aid PDFs. So they created PDFs with the bare bones information that people needed, which is fine. They put them up on a SharePoint server where everyone can get to them, and sent out email links so that people who needed them for their different tasks, needed to do the different tasks could go do that. But of course, we know there's some problems with that. I mean, it's great they got the information out there, but there were no knowledge checks. There was no tracking. They didn't know that they didn't know whether or not people actually went to the PDFs and used them. They didn't have any insight in how the information was received, how it was used, who actually used it, who read it. They couldn't point to a report that said these people have passed the tests, they have passed the questions. So I would say that's a missed opportunity, and it's really a missed opportunity because microlearning wasn't considered in the toolbox. They considered a lot of options. This was a rush thing. They knew they needed to get it done and done quickly, but it wasn't one of the things that they were set up to actually do. So the point I want to make about microlearning is that training departments often build this, and this is no slight against training departments. They build 18-wheelers, and that's what because that's what we're used to creating, delivering, planning for, and rolling out. Sometimes people really just need this. They need the small. They need it small. They need it quick. They need it within a timely fashion. They don't need all the bells and whistles, and they don't need every single layer of complexity that we can possibly add. They just need to be strategic and target what they need. So what's the difference? I like to call it, I like to make the distinction between large, planned, and required, which is what we're used to doing. That's the compliance training, that is the onboarding training, that is the when you're dealing with a large rollout and you have time to actually build the training alongside the system you're rolling out, right? Those are large, planned, required type projects. They involve subject matter expert, the ISD model, development tools. You have to deal with a protocol, maybe SCORM, AICC, if you're dealing with old technology, Experience API if you're dealing with new technology, and then there's an LMS or maybe an LRS on the back end. Timeline is usually months, which is okay. I mean, job security is awesome. I mean, 3 months projects are great. But there can be another way to go about it. Microlearning, small, ad hoc, optional. It is how I think of it, as opposed to large, planned, and required. You really want to, when you get into microlearning, use as few resources as possible if you can. If this is the type of project where the timing is important. Then you want to keep a good pace and get things out quickly. And that led me last year to sort of ponder the question, can one person go from a problem to a solution in a week? Can we actually do this? Rather than taking several months to develop a solution, actually identify a problem, talk to the right people, and implement something. And it's not just a matter of building a tool that creates smaller training. You have to rethink a lot of things. About reporting and assignments and accountability and what types of interactions you have, and you have to sort of throw some things away, along the process. So, can one person go from a solution, a problem, to a solution in a week? And I would say yes. I think you need certain things. You need a simplified technology stack. With integrated tracking and reporting. So you may not have the time to do all the SCORM and the testing or setting up Experience API and getting that all working. It's probably going to end up being linear. I like nonlinear training. I prefer that. I like giving people the ability to explore, and especially if it's a type of training where you've built it so they're going to come back later after they've applied some of the knowledge and come back and get a little more knowledge. Non-linearity can be a huge asset, but for microlearning, it's not about building that all-encompassing solution. It's about building that smaller targeted solution. So linear actually works better. And the model that I came up with uses required knowledge checks to replace separate embedded mastery tests and embedded questions. So they really become, at that point, gatekeepers to additional content. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of, I'm going to tell you what the objectives are, because we're good instructional designers. I'm going to give you a little bit of information, and then I'm going to ask you some questions about that information. And before you can go on to the next piece of information, you need to make sure those questions are answered. So that actually replaces a completely separate mastery test that you would have to develop and administer, report on, all those kinds of things. So in this system, that's all fused together, which we'll see a little bit more about that. So completing all screens is, in this case, synonymous with passing. So it's not a distinction of I finished the content versus I passed the test, and what do I pass back to the LMS for completion, or if there's some gray areas in there, I didn't pass the test, well, I completed the content. Completion is that whole thing. It's getting to the end of the linear path that you've set out for your users. That shows that at that point they understand everything that you've set out to task them with and answered all the questions correctly. 100% web-based software as a service, no server setup, no installs. We are definitely in the era of just software as a service and not having a custom server in-house for every single application that we do. I mean, that is where things are going, and I think microlearning is no exception to that. Self-registration in order to avoid preloading an assignment, so that this is not an LMS replacement, but there are tools that I want to show you, and sort of a different way of approaching how this can work. Now in this environment that I'm talking about, if people are solving problems, it's not necessarily a top-down hierarchy. It could be multiple people in an organization solving multiple types of problems. Well, then you have another problem, which is like how does that work in a less centralized system? And it would kind of work like this, where you can leverage what's called in the database world many-to-many relationships. So user 1, user 2, user 3. User 1 creates course, user 2 creates course, user 3 creates course. They're all there to learn. User 1 might take course 2, course 3. User 2 might take course 1, course 3. User 3 might take course 1, course 2. So you're really doing 3 fundamental things. You're creating, you're sharing, and you're learning. And that's what I built this tool around. The interface is built around those 3 concepts. And everything inside is built around that. And the key to that is the sharing portal. So the sharing portal is something that is created as soon as you create and share courses, any user in the system who creates something like anything that they want to share, it creates a portal for them with a unique link that they can send to anybody that they want. They can control access to, and then whoever gets that link, however it's distributed through email, through the web, hooking up to your corporate intranet, you can text it. Whoever gets that link can come and register directly in the portal and set themselves up and automatically get in. There's also an anonymous registration option. So if you have content you want to share and you want to track users, but you don't necessarily need to collect their email or their names, or you're dealing with sensitive information where you just might not want to track that because of the subject matter, you can actually set up anonymous registration as well. So you still get reporting, you still get the numbers and get to see everything, but if people don't want to share their info, it's not going to make them share their info. So you make the courses active, you distribute the link, learners self-enroll, and learners can use multiple portals at a time. Let's see. Just want to make sure I didn't skip something there. In addition, because it's web-based, you can integrate all of these other embeddable web resources. So it has a certain number of things that you'd expect in it, to the ability to present content and assessment questions, actually survey questions too, which not all tools support. But there's a ton of tools out there, so we don't need to reinvent the wheel. If we want to do video, there's YouTube and Vimeo. Quizlet has some neat interactions if you want to do more gamification things. SlideShare, there's tons of information out there. Chat roll, Zoom, all these things are embeddable. They're web friendly. They're either through embed codes, which can be dropped right into multi-bridges, or web links. You can incorporate all these other tools that you really might want to use. So I'm going to walk you through a hands-on example. Because we're doing this via Zoom, I did this and did screen caps so that I could drop them in here. So what you're seeing is not actually me using the software, it's screen caps of me having used the software, basically, just to make everything sort of easy, so we don't have to screen share multiple applications and all kinds of crazy stuff. So multi-bridges, I'm going to show registering email, creating a course, adding, updating screen, adding images and video, how to preview both of those, adding knowledge checks, adding survey questions, how to make it active, and how to share. So multi-bridges itself, this is the homepage for multi-bridges. That's the Ponte Vecchia Bridge in Florence, Italy, which is the heart of the Renaissance. If you've ever been there, you definitely recognize that bridge. It's one of the, and there are a lot of landmarks in Florence, but that's one of the biggest, most prominent landmarks. And really, to start, all you do is go to the website and click on the Start Now button. That'll bring you to a sharing portal that I set up which has some introductory courses. So basically getting you started in multi-bridges, and then a couple other courses that show some other things. I took Khan Academy fractions, some of their fractions courses that they have up on YouTube, and integrated it all together and put questions in there, so you can actually see how that could work and how that could pace. So it's actually a better experience because it's not just the videos straight off of YouTube. It is actually asking you questions and making sure you understand the concepts before you go on to the next videos. On this screen, all you would do is put in your information, click on the courses you want to start with, and click Enroll. That would bring you to your Learning tab. You can see the Create Learning and Sharing, or Create, Sharing, and Learning up top. Like I promised you a couple slides back, that's really how this tool is built, around those three key concepts. This is my learning. So this is exactly what you would see. Every portal you're involved in. So in here, there's 3 portals that I'm using. I can click on a course to launch it. I can click on an email to email the person who created it, or I can click the plus enroll button to go back to the portal to see if there are any other courses there that I might want to sign up for. Creating and editing courses. So see, I'm over on the Create tab. If you look up top, this shows the courses in this account plus some additional courses. Some are active, some are not. Some are test courses. If I wanted to create a new course, say for this presentation, I'd click Create a New Course, type in the name, click that, and then it automatically sets me up. And the interface is pretty simple. It shows the course on the left, and it shows all the screens underneath it. I can click on a screen to bounce around. I can add a new screen by clicking the new screen or the media button. And this is the editor for a real simple basic screen, not unlike many other online LMS course development type tools. That part should look pretty familiar. But say we wanted to upload some media, and I would scroll down a little bit and click Upload Course Media. In this case, because I don't have any media yet in the course, it's not giving me the option to insert some already used media. But, excuse me, but in this case, I would click Choose File, select the media from my hard drive, upload the course media, and it would insert it to the course automatically for me. Then I could save or save in preview. Let's say we're going to save in preview, and it shows me the information, the graphic, all within the course, within the interface. So this is exactly what the end user taking the training. So this is what the learner would see, with the exception of those 2 buttons, because I'm essentially in authoring mode. I can click on any of the screens on the left-hand side to get back to the editor, or I can click on New Screen to add a new screen, or I can go to the Course Media Editor, which just gives me some basic management of media. So in this case, we're going to go back, click on basic screen, create a new screen, and add, and this is going to be a little video. All you need to do to add the video is just copy and paste the URL out of YouTube. So YouTube does have some tools in there where you can kind of click down and eventually get the embed video, and it'll give you stuff you can copy and paste, and it'll give you the low-level HTML. But let's not deal with that. Let's just say, let's just copy the URL, paste it in here, and let Multi-Bridges figure out the rest. So if I if I do that, save and preview, all of a sudden it's dropping in a video from Dr. Carl Kopp, who you might be a little familiar with. So Carl and Robin D. Felice put together this book on microlearning, which came out last year, called Microlearning Short and Sweet. Of course, Carl teaches at Bloomsburg, and Robin's a graduate of the program. They're both great people. They may have, I would not be surprised if Carl hasn't presented at some point. Yeah. He's a great guy. He's a fun presenter.
He was one of our key speakers from last year.
Oh, okay. Oh, great. Fantastic. Great. So let's talk about knowledge checks a little bit. Sort of similar. I mean, this is a knowledge check interface that's similar to a lot of other web-based knowledge check or type tools. There's one big difference here. Well, what's similar is you'd put in the screen title, put in the information, and put in the options, and select via the key what the correct answer is. The one thing that's different is that first column on the right-hand side. Because this is all a single integrated platform, this tool will actually show you right in the editor what your learners have answered. So which is really handy, right? As an instructional designer, you go back and you see, okay, you know, if 100% of the people got the correct answer correct, hey, maybe my distractors aren't very good. And it's great that 100% of the people got it, but maybe I should, you know, I could probably make this a little tougher. I could probably, you know, they're getting it. So let's, you know, if there's anything else we want to cover, let's try to cover that too, right? Make them stretch just a little bit, make it a little tougher. If you see that everybody's answering the wrong question or using the wrong distractor first as their first guess, well, that may make you rethink whether the question needs some work or whether the content needs a little bit of work, because one of those two is probably a little bit off and not aligning with the other. So if I put in that information, click Save and Preview, that brings me to here, shows me the question, presents it to me. And so again, in the preview, I'm running this just like a learner would, including running the check answer, and I can do all that. And then as soon as I interact on the left-hand side, it brings me back to the editor. Multiple choice questions can either be single answer or multi-answer. And I don't have an example of a multi-answer multiple choice question, but I wanted to show what a survey question would look like, because it's a similar concept. And it's also a similar concept with the data collection. So a survey question is not graded, right? Because multiple choice questions have actual answers. Survey questions are really for collecting that information from users. So this could be, in this case, this is basically asking the learners what other topics they might want microlearning developed on. But it also could be a replacement for your smell sheets. So rather than having a separate piece of paper or a separate application that learners have to jump to, or a separate part of the LMS, you can actually collect that right inside the course. And as an author, you can go in and actually look at the data real time and see what people are doing with it. So and this is how I would set it up. Really simple, pretty straightforward. This is what it looks like to the end user. You know, check boxes and check whatever they need to, submit their answer, and then they're allowed to continue on with the course. From the authoring instructional designer point of view, when you go back, this is what you see. You actually see the data right in there. So at that point, you can copy and paste it. You can take a screen cap, you can send it to your boss or your client. You could send it to the team and say, hey, you know, here's the data. Let's discuss this at our next meeting and figure out what our next steps are. So it's pretty easy, pretty simple, which is what I'm going for. So some other things is to cover. There's integrated reporting and business intelligence sort of worked in here. Some of the things that you would expect. So enrolled learners, who enrolled and who's actually completed. Screen learner count, who made it, how far. Screen median time, so how long in each screen. Knowledge checks, which we talked about, so first selections for knowledge checks. And survey questions, so tallies for survey questions. And these two things, which I find really interesting, so that I just want to point out, the screen learner count. So basically, because we're dealing with linear content, so if we have 10 screens laid out, we can actually see, okay, everyone made it to screen 1, everyone made it to screen 2. Ooh, as soon as we hit that first knowledge check question, we lost some learners, okay. You know, and they hit content, and then we asked a couple more questions. Well, where did people fall out? How long did people spend on each screen? Like that information, to have that information at your fingertips makes you a better instructional designer, because it gives you that feedback to be able to chunk information better and to really have more of a feel for how users are going through the course, where they get stuck, what screens they're going back to, where they're spending their time, what questions they're not able to answer right off the bat after having seen the content the first time. So I think because this platform is integrated in a way that most LMSs are not, I'm able to take advantage of some of this tight integration and give you some better data as you go along. So we looked at the tool. I want to show you the team. So design, I designed it. This tool was essentially designed last year in 2019 through a lot of conversations, several drinks, sort of going back and forth with people and picking their brains and sort of talking about what different problems people had and how they wanted to approach microlearning. Really, in December 2019, I built an HTML mock-up just so I could show people and have them walk through it, and that was a pretty effective way of getting feedback. Development, oh yeah, there's the head of development right there. It was developed. I started really coding this in January and February as some contracts I was working on were tying up. And then when COVID hit, I had a big chunk of time. And so I was able to actually, in February, March, April, really, with the idea of presenting this at a conference at the end of April, which I did, I was able to really push forward and develop it in that time frame. Marketing is also, well, it's also that guy. Really loves sushi. And hosting. Hosting is done at AWS, so this is all built on Amazon. Well, it's built on servers here, but it's all deployed on Amazon Web Services servers. And if any of you are familiar with the setup and might be wondering, it's built actually with 3 servers, what's called an EC2 server, which runs the application, an RDS server, which runs the database, and an S3 server, which manages all the client media that's uploaded and coordinates that. So it's an EC2, an RDS, and an S3. That's sort of the formula for how this is developed. Future plans. One is to validate the platform. I designed this, I built this, I use this. I think it's useful, but that's not the real test. The real test is if you think it's useful. If people who actually have similar problems to what I'm describing are able to get in, use the tool, solve their problems, get the information out, do the reporting, and actually find that it solves their problems. That's the real test of validation. And so that's sort of where I'm at this point. Seek undiscovered opportunities. I think because this is built differently than a lot of other things out there, It's not built like an LMS. I have built an LMS from head to toe. It's not built like an LMS. It's built like a different kind of animal. And I believe that there are uses that I have not yet discovered for it out there. One of them is microlearning as a microservice. Microservice is a general sort of IT concept that applications are becoming smaller but more integrated, especially since everything has become web-based. That web services are sort of easy to use, APIs are able to integrate. And I think this type of thing could be integrated with other tools that are out there to solve problems that are both familiar and unfamiliar. Seeking revenue at some point, that'll matter. Right now, because it's running on AWS, it's pretty inexpensive, and therefore I'm offering it for free to anybody who wants to get in and kick the tires. Eventually, I'll have to figure out the revenue model is, and it'll probably be in added services. I think the base model will probably stay free, knock on wood, forever. Public sharing catalogs. So right now, all of the portals, when you create a portal, it's up to you to share that portal. You have control over that. I think that there may be a use out there for people to create content using the tool and then actually put it out somewhere public where people can find it and take it and share it on the site. So that probably is going to be the next big feature, is creating a public sharing portal that people can opt their courses into, and that is discoverable on the internet, that you'll then be able to come to the site even before you register and peruse courses that are there, and therefore to be findable by Google and all that kind of stuff. Micro gaming templates. I like the idea of using micro gaming in courses. That it always takes a little bit of time, but with the right types of templates and the right types of games, you can boost that interactivity, which of course helps all the other things we care about, right? Like retention and increasing scores and even the ability of learners to like the course, right? All those things boost. So at some point, I'm going to spend some time looking at what type of games I might want to incorporate there. It's also possible that there may be a demand out there to take courses developed in this tool and say, okay, fine, like that, this is good for our population, this solved our problem today, but we want to now take this and incorporate it into our LMS so that future learners can get it as part of a regular curriculum. Right now, I don't have a SCORM or an XA API export, but that technology would not be very difficult to add in there. So that may be something. And that also may tie back into the revenue. I mean, that if people just paid for LMS exports, that would solve the revenue problem, and then we could all just use the tool forever for free, and that would be great. APIs for data retrieval, it may be possible, or well, it's definitely possible, but it may be a request in the future that people need to take some of the data and actually integrate it with other systems that are out there, or develop content libraries that they can then duplicate and customize, or potentially even PayPal and Stripe integration. So it might, if there is a public sharing portal, it might be that, okay, you create a course, you put a price tag on it, and it automatically integrates with your PayPal account. So people pay, we get the signal back from PayPal. I've done this for custom clients on the LMS. It would not be terribly hard to integrate into a tool like this. Yeah. And so those are some of the future plans, but of course they all depend on feedback from learners. So I'd like to sort of open up the floor for questions and answers. Best way to contact me is the email there right in the middle, j@blueboxsw.com. That is also the email that you can reply to when you register. So when you register on the site, it'll actually come from that email address. You can just reply to that if you have any questions, concerns, issues. feedback, both good and bad. So don't just give me good feedback without giving me the bad stuff, and don't just give me the bad stuff without giving me the good stuff. I want both. Multibridges.com is the site itself. We can drop that in the chat if anybody wants to just copy it directly out of that. And if you need a full-fledged learning management system, may I recommend Test Track Learning Management System, which is ttlms.com for Test Track Learning Management System, which is a full score, AICC, SCORM. It does all the stuff. It has course development tools incorporated in it. It has a really phenomenal reporting engine, much better than any one I've seen on a large commercial LMSs. And at one point or another, I've used them all because we integrate our courses to other LMSs, and other people with content come to us. So I end up sort of touching all the technologies that are out there, and we build a really phenomenal reporting engine on top of that, as well as course development tools and things like that. So if you're in the market for the full-blown solution, please do consider that as well.
Jay, I'd actually like to open the floor for some questions at first. When you start talking about the microlearning and the tool that you've put out, I feel like there's a huge opportunity to integrate it into even elements of marketing. In many cases, we have a good population in ATD of individuals who work in large organizations, pharma, you have banking, you have these large companies. And in marketing, you could create these real nice packaged learning opportunities and almost include that and incorporate that as a way of building out a marketing presence and get people learning about information as well. Is that something that you had considered as well, or anybody else on the call that have thought about that?
Yeah, absolutely. There is an interesting overlap between instructional design and marketing, in that, which is funny. I don't know if you know Jonathan Jones. He's a Bloomsburg grad. He's done a lot of things with AT&T, and he's been all over the place. He runs his own company. He's not all that far, but he actually has done a lot of exploration. We've had a lot of really interesting conversations about the overlap between marketing and instructional design. And yes, absolutely. This is something that could be incorporated into a larger campaign of educating people via marketing, internally or even externally. And really there's the little pieces that are there, like this is built to be. There's a concept in software development, MVP, minimum viable product. So this is essentially built to be a small thing, and the advantage of that is that it can be used in a bunch of different ways. So I'm not trying to check every checkbox. I'm trying to be the most useful and flexible, and so it absolutely could be incorporated into something like that. Yep.
Opportunities, definitely opportunities. What other questions do we have out there? I know a lot of you some of you have joined us in the middle of the session. Please take the floor. Tony.
Hi, yeah, thank you, Jay, for that presentation, and BJ. So, I'm not in learning, I'm in quality and compliance. And I feel that one of the kind of root causes of a lot of problems is just that people aren't learning. Our training is not adequate. People are not learning from it. Mm-hmm. And, with COVID as well, I thought, well, okay, then I'm going to retreat into the virtual world and start to make my own training and use some of the things that I think, and I don't know about learning, but I've been trying to learn about it. So use some of the principles that I think are wrong with the training program and do my own stuff and experiment. So I'm super interested in your multi-bridges idea. And I'm sitting here thinking, because I have a compliance training to give sometime in Q4. I was thinking, well, what if I sort of broke it up into little bits? I like the idea of micro-learning. Mm-hmm. And I was going to make either curate some videos off YouTube or make my own in Camtasia, like short MP4 format. I mean, how long would it take me, sort of, what's the learning curve? And is it possible, could I get onto multi-bridges, make my Camtasia thing, upload it, like structure the question, and then send people a link and try the training that way? Is it doable? It'd be kind of an experiment, and you know, I'm from a bigger corporation, so I'd have to, you know, probably our learning department wouldn't even know about it, but we'd figure that out. I am in compliance, so I shouldn't break any rules, but I'll figure that bit out anyway. So that's what's going through my head.
Well, that is the idea. Yes, exactly. That you, as somebody who because of your job function, right, you can recognize these issues in the organization. And so this is absolutely a bottom-up type tool.
Right. So I could, that's basically what I said is basically how it would work. I would upload the media, get a link to do the training, send that link to people.
Yes, and I would start with videos. Yeah, exactly. Start with videos. Either YouTube, if you're not going to be able to upload the Camtasia directly, so you'd either have to put it out on YouTube.
All right.
You can email me. There's a couple of different options.
Yeah, I see.
That we can do for that. We do for that. But that's basically what you're talking about is you can build it, try it out, and then start sharing this link with people. You know, start with people close to you, have them try it out, make sure that it works the way that you want it to work, and that they, you know, they're satisfied with it, you're satisfied with it, and then share it more widely. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and it didn't seem like there was much of a learning curve from what you said. It's like
no, it's pretty quick. You can go today. You can go today. So I ran a session back in the spring, and had basically, rather than sort of showing it the way that I did, I had people actually run through it and do it. So in basically 20 minutes, 40 people created courses.
Okay. Well, thank you.
So, you're very much welcome. Email me if you have any more questions or anything else I can help you with.
Thank you for that.
Was there anyone else that had some, I saw a couple other folks come off of mute. Is there someone that wants to take the floor? Yes, no?
Any other questions? Anything in chat?
Yeah, we did get a question asking, would you share your slides? It's something I realized we didn't ask our speakers if they would be willing to share their slides. So we'll have to circle back around on that.
Yeah, I can do that. I can knock out a PDF. And do you want it? Do you want me to just email it to you, Jeff?
Please. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
I wanted to, if the questions are good, and again, please reach out to Jay. He's done amazing work. I feel very privileged that I kind of got a little sneak peek of his tool as he was going through and building it, and the development of it and the progression that he's made in it is just really, it's really nice. It is so clean, and I think that's one of the design elements that always appeals to me. Anything that looks clean is definitely on my top 10 list. I want to encourage everybody to take a look at the agenda for the session for the program for today. We have a second session that'll be starting at 3:45, and that'll be learning strategies and technologies, what actually works with Stephen Just. I'll have the link to share in a moment. I also want to encourage people as well to join in some sponsor presentations. Between 3 and 3:30, we'll have Learning Stone doing some presentations, Allen Interactions, and I believe Get Abstract will also be out there. So I'm going to share some links for you inside the chat. Please feel free to explore some of the other technology and information that we have.
Great.
PJ, I have a question for Jay.
Go ahead, Jeff.
What are issues around security of people getting onto your system? Is there a sign-on, or how does that work?
So what I actually do, which is a little different than a typical system, is when you register, it sends you a URL. So rather than having a password reset, validate your email box, it actually just sends you a single URL that you can click on in your email, and you can have it resend you that email anytime, and it'll actually just send you an email back with that link. That automatically gets you into the your account, basically. So that part of security I've actually simplified for now. Now there are some issues around the sharing of the portals. Like, for instance, should it be passworded? Should there be an extra level of security there? And right now I've held off on implementing additional levels of security because you can sort of go down a rabbit hole. And I'm curious to see what how people use it and what the security requirements are of the use cases that people actually do.
Part of the reason I ask is
Mhm.
I'm really interested in being able to deliver to people just-in-time training, and it gets to be a little cumbersome when you have to log into an LMS, find the course, do this, do that. I'm looking for a lot more of a direct connection. And this kind of looks like it fills some of that. So I'm going to have to be talking to you about something like that, because if you see my presentation at the end, I think there are definitely ways that we can provide people with immediate links to things that would help train them, that are built right into the environment.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. Mm-hmm.
We do have another question out there. Jeff, if you're done, I'll go ahead and.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Valeria has put out, what is the security for the content that is placed in your software? Is it only visible to me?
Security, there's a lot of different levels to answering that question. So the content that you put in the course would be visible only to you until you make it active. And then once you make it active, it would be shared on your sharing portal. But your sharing portal is hidden from people, and that's only accessible if you choose to share it. So there's a URL that that has encryption in it that you would copy and share that the system gives you. And so it's